Oh well, yeah. Welcome everyone. I think we've almost got, well, not everyone here, but we've got a good number. So thanks for turning up. Um, yeah, we'll give a few more minutes and see what other stragglers arrive. But yeah, just to let everyone know, we are streaming to YouTube. There's a new feature in Zoom that just lets you do it quite easily. So hopefully that's all right with everyone. Not that we've got 4 people watching on YouTube as well. So we'll see how well that goes. We will be uploading a recording to YouTube later on, as we usually do. Anthony, you're in charge of letting people in. You got
Yep.
that control.
Obviously pressing the admit button.
Cool. All right, we've still got a few people coming in. Yeah, so we've got I think we've got about 10 speakers this evening, just to give short demos and little idea of what they've been working on recently. So that's really great. They're going to be quite short, 5 to 10 minutes thereabouts per talk. So if anyone's got any questions they'd like to ask any of the speakers, please just post it in the chat down there somewhere, and we'll get to all the questions at the end. If you can just make sure you say who the question's for, unless you specifically want to ask like everybody the same question. That might get a bit crazy. So yeah, maybe just specify who it's for, and then we'll go through all the questions at the end, or Anthony will get through as many as we can. And then we're going to give a try to this Mozilla Hubs thing. I don't know if anyone's had a play with it before. Anthony and myself spent way too long in there the other day trying to figure out how it works and trying to post things on the wall, and didn't go very well. But it feels like it might be a nice place at least to try and have a normal conversation between groups of people rather than just one person speaking to everyone. So we'll give that a try. There is a link in the chat already to that if anyone wants to have a little play ahead of time, but I'm not sure how well it will work alongside Zoom with the processor and whatnot. So yeah, use it at your own risk. But yeah, at the end of the meetup, we'll head over there and yeah, try and chat amongst ourselves. Cool. I think that's pretty much the number of people have sort of slowed down from coming in. So I think, oh, we've still got one more. Okay, well, we're on 35 past. I think we're kind of on schedule, pretty much, aren't we? Should we get our first one going, Anthony? Have we got your approval?
Yeah, let's do it.
Right, we got 5 people on YouTube. Oh, amazing. Right, so yeah, first person up this evening is Dia. Dia's going to be giving us a little demo of what he's been working on, little 3JS project for National History Museum. So yeah, I'm gonna just try and and Anthony's on charge of video. I won't touch it. Anthony, you're in charge. Cool. The focus is just on you, Anthony, now. I don't know if that's
Really?
Yeah, you're supposed to focus on
I did.
At least for me it is.
No. I've focused Dia.
I see
Still
Dia.
focused. Can I share my screen or?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, for some reason the focus is on you, but oh well.
For the stream, it's fine.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Okay, I'll go back to this view. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, go for it. All yours, mate.
I've got host disabled screen sharing at the moment.
Are you on mute?
Sorry, I'm muting myself. It's because you disappeared and came back again. Let me just make you co-host again. Okay, you should be able to share your screen now, dear.
Yep. Cool. Cool, we get that. So yeah, my name's Thea. I work at the Natural History Museum, and this is a demo of a sort of 3JS experiment I've been playing around with this year. So a little bit about me first. I'm actually working in this building, but my offices aren't the best, and I have a good view. I've been there a long time, so I work in a lot of different technologies like CMSs, Java. I used to work on Flash, but I also build interactives for the museum as well. The demo we're going to talk about is we recently replatformed the Wildlife Photography of the Year competition site to React and Next.js. We basically got a really nice API out of it, so you can see it running, I hope, in the video. So it's a very sort of filterable set of images and data. The images all have like geolocation data and image dimensions, so it's a really nice set. I've always liked sort of seeing where the images like came from. So we've got like geolocation data, but sort of I always want to do something with that. So the actual demo, if I switch over to, so you should be able to see that. So this is the new kind of WebGL globe I built. It's 1,100 images at the moment from 11 years worth of winning images. The yellow lines are basically winners, the white ones are the runner-ups, and they're all sort of interactable. So you can sort of see where they come from. It's all driven by the API. You can zoom in and sort of bounce around the collection. You can go to the actual image page, sort of see all the sort of the actual. So that's the images page is like already like live now, but the globe is sort of the experiment. You can go. Well, I can just move those. So basically, you're an image set in the image set, so you can browse through as you can do normally. Some images aren't the best, but that's what it is. This one's always quite favourite. And you can jump back to the globe as well and see where it was. So you can carry on browsing. So working on some CSS there. The other good thing you could do is basically kind of create custom filters. So we've already got this in place for the gallery, so they can basically pick kind of very specific locations and pick categories. We've also got species and things in there as well. To basically create your own sort of collection from 11 years worth of images, and obviously jump straight back into the globe and see that. Yes, to the sort of thing. Obviously less images, but you can see they're all there and carry on browsing with it. So again, you can jump into an image and you've got that set in memory. So that's kind of what I've been building. Still sort of work in progress, but I'll jump back to the slides and sort of just go over a bit of tech. So I looked at quite a few WebGL globes. There's quite a few open source ones out there. I found this one called React Globe, which is based like built on TypeScript and React. It's quite new. It's got really nice textures. It's quite configurable. You can do custom marks as well. So I kind of installed that as a dependency in my project. It comes out of the box with kind of very basic markers like kind of squares or spheres. So, but it does let you do custom markers. So the first thing I did is basically like hook up with like a cone and a sprite. The first example, but obviously that's not going to work very well with lots of images. So I switched to using a sort of plain mesh with textures, as you can see here. So quite quick to set up. I started hacking the library at this point, just to sort of do kind of more sort of different, kind of more serious changes to it. First UX challenge. On the left, you can see the sort of kebab style structure. I basically set the lines to be like random heights, just to sort of start with. That's not really going to work because you can't really see the images or interact with them. So what we need to do is basically space them out, but still keep a bit of randomness going on. So I didn't actually do a 3D sort of solution for it. I ended up using sort of geolocation data and found a library called GeoLib, which lets you sort of calculate proximity based on sort of geolocation. So here's some code I can't really run through, but what it basically does is it sorts by sort of proximity, and then it basically groups them, and then you can space out the groups. So I'm sort of still debugging a couple of glitches, but you can see the groups are basically colored here randomly. So I can see kind of what's happening with sort of the spacing and the vertical height. So it kind of has like a minimum height to make it sort of, so you can still see each marker and interact with it. So sort of next challenge with like loading this many images is basically kind of memory. So I'm kind of sort of, I've done a bit of 3GS before, but there's a sort of a bit more sort of different optimization I'm looking at. So when I first loaded up 700 markers in, Chrome was about 1.5 gigabytes of GPU memory, which isn't great. So like with JPEGs, they're compressed on the files, they're 30 KB, 40 KB, but when you put them on a GPU, they're uncompressed, they're 1 meg plus, which isn't going to work. I was actually quite lucky and found a solution quite quickly with this basis texture format. It's a new compressed GPU texture format. There's basically usually there's quite a few different formats that run different hardware, but Basis lets you have one format that gets kind of transcoded into the required formats for each device on the fly. So you can basically convert to Basis from PNGs and JPEGs. You've got a nice 3JS loader to load them up as textures, and you're also saving some file sizes anyway from the originals. Really good. I had one problem. I was getting all black screens or black images from a lot of the WQI images. Couldn't figure out why until I realized eventually all the Basis conversion needs to be power of 2 image sizes. So the WQI images are all very random aspect ratios. So that's kind of what we're messing up. So found a nice GIMP script that resizes to power of 2 here, and that putting that through the Basis conversion got everything working nicely. It reduced the memory by 50%, so it kind of runs quite well now. It's actually pretty good on mobile, apart from loading up all separate images. Other thought challenges were basically the frame rate, just having so much on the screen, 1,200 images or 100 images. So when I first started, 700 markers, it's basically 1,400 draw calls because basically each one made up of one mesh, or one cone mesh and one plane mesh. So instancing is the first thing that we go for, but it's difficult to do with different materials, which is what the images were. So, but the cones were basically clones of each other, just different rotation and position. So you can turn those into instant meshes. A bit of code again, but all you have to basically do is sort of transform them once they've been instanced into where they need to be. So kind of use the other marker positions to basically kind of do a matrix transform and sort of hook them up, and you can see some sort of things as I was looking through it. Not getting it quite right, but they look kind of cool. So the other sort of things to look at, we still got 700 draw calls, or as many images there are, so there's still too many. Texture atlases and merging geometry. It's kind of basic what a texture atlas does. You basically have one texture or one material on the GPU, and you kind of use it in different ways and different meshes you need. So I've kind of done a few experiments with dynamic texture atlases, but I'm still kind of working on it. There's a few sort of demos I'm sort of playing around with. That obviously would reduce the draw calls, and therefore it would reduce the GPU, will increase the GPU speed, because draw calls are basically how the bottleneck between CPU and GPU. The one thing I kind of avoided doing was merging the geometry, because I thought I had to basically wait for the texture atlas to do that, but I ended up doing it anyway and actually found it did improve the speed quite a lot just from merging. Even though draw calls haven't reduced, it's because it's just more efficient as a draw call. All I had to do basically is the original library had interaction code that would only work on meshes. So because I'm kind of merged everything together, I had to basically rebuild that with a kind of mesh face selector or raycaster, which is pretty straightforward. So you can still interact with everything. There's quite a few to-dos for Christmas to sort of push it along, kind of improve the positioning, damage atlases again, a bit of computation, maybe pushing it onto the server to sort of speed things up. I'm kind of playing around with tweens, so it's all played up as well. So fading out the other images, as you can see the image. Maybe show up some more data. Anyone you zoom in. Yeah, kind of work in progress. And I'd love to basically put it in the gallery with maybe gesture controls in these times on a big screen as well. And that's it really. So that's me. Contact details. If anyone's working on something similar or anyone interested, just give me a shout. Thank you.
Awesome. I keep meaning to get that clapping track one of these days. Yeah, nice one, Dia. Thanks for that. Really interesting. When's it going live?
I'll probably have a test light up, hopefully after Christmas. Yeah, I'll kind of link it up and everything, and I'll make it over the year. I'll have it up eventually. Just a few other bits of work at the moment. So,
cool.
Guys.
Forward to seeing it. Cool. Well, if you've got any more questions for Dia, just chuck them in the Slack, not the Slack channel, the chat, and we'll get through as many of them as we can at the end. Be sure to say who you're targeting the question at as well, so we know who to ask. Cool. All right. Dear, do you want to stop sharing? I think you're still sharing. There you go. Cool. Right, we're going to move straight on to our next speaker this evening. Figure out who's next in my list. We've got Julia. I'm not sure I can pronounce I should have asked you how to pronounce your last name first. We've got Julia up next. You can pronounce her last name for us. Yeah, all yours.
Cool. All right, so hello everyone. My name is Julia Makovic, or Bakovic, depends. And I will be demoing IRL, the game today. So I made this game in collaboration with author Chris Stedman, and it's based off of his latest book called IRL, Finding Realness, Meaning, and Belonging in Our Digital Lives. He commissioned this game to go along with the book. So the book explores what it means to be real online. It's kind of a nuanced examination of how our digital lives and our physical lives blend together and end up influencing each other. So for example, the book mentions how our digital personas can often be fake or not 100% representational of who we are, or they can be aspirational and the projection of how we would like to be. He mentions how digital spaces can extend our boundaries and our understanding of how we relate to the rest of the world. And he also explores how the internet can be a place that uplifts marginalized voices and can also be a tool for further marginalization. So the game builds on the themes explored in the book and focuses on some key characters and scenes that Chris references as a part of his research. So in the game, you wander through a digital Twitter-like space. You interact with posts by clicking on some cryptic-looking emojis. And then you also, like, certain characters will ask you questions, and how you respond determines the outcome of the game. So I was thinking for this, oh yeah, and also I should mention the game was made using P5.js. So I was thinking I could do a quick playthrough of the game. I'll keep an eye on the chat so that you can like shout out emojis that seem appealing to you, and also I'll keep an eye on how people want to answer each question that comes up. So I'll start sharing my screen and we can begin to play. Right. Can everyone see this? Cool. So you can start off by generating a username. Do any of these look appealing?
Glow Cloud.
All right. Yep. So you go through posts like this. So this one says, hello, welcome to Contemplate.io, a digital platform where you can explore what it means to be real in our digital world. Click an emoji to proceed. And these are the emojis. So I'm going to go with this one because that seems sensible. Yeah, don't worry too much about which emoji you're going to click. Just go with what feels right in the moment. Now other posts will just have emojis, and some of them will let you choose a question. So if you see this symbol, it means that that post will impact the outcome of the game, depending on how you respond to it. So let's proceed. Glitchwitch, I live inside of your computer. Good thing or bad thing? I'll just go with this one because it's unnerving. Yes, like for clean drinking water. Aggressive sports fan, sports will win. That seems intriguing. Yep. So I'll quickly go through these because we're on limited time, but eventually you'll start meeting certain posts that appear, the posts from people that appear over and over again, and those are some of the main characters. This is one of them. This one, so I'm going to click this emoji because this seems exciting. Yeah. If there's any, yeah, let me know which emoji you would like me to click, or if you want, I can just go through it on my own.
I quite like the sad ghost.
Okay.
That speaks to me.
This seems pretty nice. Intriguing. Does this resonate with anyone? I'll just click this one. Yep. Yeah, I'll just quickly go through these. Yeah, I'll pause at each one just so you can get a chance to read them. All right, so here is a post where a question pops up. Are there any of these, do any of these answers resonate with the audience?
Yeah.
Not everyone.
Yeah.
Which one?
Probably the second one, the right one for me.
Yeah.
Probably for most of us.
All right. What about this one?
Oh, it's a tough one.
Yeah. Going to see if I can, okay, cool, I can view the chat. Huh. So the first one, okay, I'm gonna guess the one is the first one. Okay. All right, I'll go with that one. All right, how about this one?
I think most people are going for number one.
All right, yep, I see now, yep. All right, yeah, so here's some more regular posts. Yep. All right, another question. Well, I'll answer questions later, but yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, so does anyone have a second? All right, I'll go with that one.
Yeah.
How about this one? Ooh, okay.
Yeah, mixed opinions here.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I'll go with the second one. How about this one? Yeah. Should I answer some of the questions as they come along? Because someone asked, sorry?
Oh, I was going to say, maybe we will save some of the questions for the end, because we've got quite a few demos to get through.
All right.
Yeah, if anyone's got any questions.
I'm noting them all down.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah, we'll get through the questions at the end if that's all right. Yeah.
All right.
Well, we might need to rush you along, Julia. Sorry, we just.
No worries. Okay, I'll quickly go through these and get to some of the end questions. But oh, whoops, sorry, I accidentally clicked one. Yeah, how about this one? And then I'll quickly click on through the end so that you can see what happens.
Right.
Yep, 2. All right. Yeah, I'm just randomly clicking things now. I don't know how much. Okay, yeah, so this is the ending screen. And over here, you have 3 of the main characters that you interacted with, and you can see what happened to them, and you get a downloadable GIF of their image. And this one as well. You can replay the game, and you can also view a map of the journey. So this is actually where clicking the emojis influences the final outcome. You get a special map of your journey, and you encounter and you get a visual display of the emotions that you encountered. So you can also download the map if you would like, and yeah, that's the game. So that's it.
That's cool. Nice one. Thank you, Julia. Yeah, feel free to share links in the chat, and yeah, we'll get to questions at once we get through all the talks, and we can chat a bit more over in Mozilla Hubs hopefully afterwards if that works all right. Cool, nice one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, we're going to move straight on to our next speaker this evening. Come on, these damn windows. Who we got next? You got Matt Garrett up next. Matt, where are you?
Yeah, that's me.
Matt. Right, you got center stage already. All yours. Take it away.
Okay, great. Yeah, nice. I'll just share my screen. Here we go. So, can you see that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Cool. Yeah, so I'm Matt, and I'm from I guess a bit of a data science and maths-based background, and this kind of title sounds a bit like it's going to be quite technical, but it's actually kind of, as you'll see, going to be a bit more kind of on the music side of things, hopefully. And this is just like a small personal project of mine. There's fortunately no interactive demos or anything, but I thought I'd show you what I've been working on. So some of you, I hope, might have heard of, there's a musical genre known as mathcore, which is pretty niche. So I've, because of that, included the definition from Wikipedia, just so you can have a bit of a browse. And this is a kind of quite an aggressive genre of music that has, I guess it's characterized by kind of complex rhythms, fluctuating time signatures, and lots of kind of more kind of quite progressive sections and things like that. And as I'm a kind of bit of a fan of the genre, I thought it would be fun to see if I could find a way to visualize this, in particular the kind of rapid changes in time signature. And so, yeah, by time signature, I mean the from like music, you typically have like 4 beats in a bar. So it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. But bands in this genre tend to kind of be a bit more experimental and play around with the time signatures they use. So I thought it'd be interesting to see if I could come up with a visual representation of this. The source of the data I used was something called Spotify, and this is a Python module that lets you interact with Spotify's web API, which gives you access to loads and loads of data about different like tracks and albums and kind of whole catalogs of songs by artists on the Spotify catalog. It's quite a, if you're into music and you like kind of data and stuff, it's a really good resource because there's a lot on there from like almost any artist on there. So it's good fun. The album that I focused on for this particular visualization was one called Calculating Infinity by a band called the Dillinger Escape Plan. So hence the title I came up with. And this is one of the kind of older albums in the genre that a lot of people see as kind of a classic and one of the kind of cornerstone albums. So, and what I've gone for with this is my kind of vague first attempt at a kind of visualization of the data I scraped, is this kind of vinyl record type representation where you have the tracks kind of spiraling outwards from the start of the album. And I was thinking you could use different colors to represent sections where the time signature changes. And for the kind of design, I did take some of the colors from hex codes that I lifted from the actual album cover. However, it doesn't seem to be giving quite the same effect. So that's definitely something to work on. And so the other thing you'll notice is that actually, if you look at these kind of segments of different color, they're actually quite long, which disagrees with what I said previously about there being lots of changes in the time signature in this form of music. And so I thought actually maybe I should go back and have a bit more of a dive into the data, which is kind of, as a data scientist, I should have been more diligent about this, but turns out, so I did a bit of digging and thought I'd compare the kind of underlying data I had to some online kind of guitar tabs where the real time signatures used in the song are given. And what I found is it's basically the time signatures in the kind of sheet music here totally don't match with what's in the data. And I think this is because clearly the algorithm that Spotify have trained to recognize time signatures of different segments of the music is like, well, either not very good overall or either kind of fails for more complex musical pieces. And I think they only keep track of like maybe 5 time signatures in total as well. So, which doesn't kind of tell you all the possible things that can happen. So, yeah, so next steps based on this is that one thing I could do rather than relying on the Spotify data, I could like go through and laboriously kind of work out the time signatures of different segments of the songs myself using those online guitar tabs, which maybe I'll do, but it seems like a lot of work. There are also other aspects of the data. Spotify have these audio features which they calculate for different sections of the songs. I think there's ones like kind of tempo, one called energy, things like danceability. I don't really know what that is, but something they've pre-computed, so they could kind of try and represent that. And there's also kind of room for, if I did have a data source that I trust, to kind of improve the design of this, because as you can see, the color scheme, to be honest, is a little bit pukey. It doesn't really represent what I was going for in the album cover. And also, so once the data is kind of trustworthy, some kind of annotation there to actually describe what it's showing might be useful. So yeah, this is just a very quick tour of something I've been working on. Please let me know if you've got any questions or be interested in contributing anyway. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I got the clapping track going finally.
Oh, I thought that was static actually. Yes. So, no, thanks.
How well that would come through.
Yeah, I thought that made that happen.
Ah, nice one. Yeah, cool. Really interesting. Yeah, any questions, guys? As I've probably mentioned once or twice, chuck them in the Slack, not the Slack channel, the chat, and we'll get to all the questions at the end, and we'll try and have a bit of a catch up afterwards and get into a bit more detail. Cool. We're going to just crack on with the next speaker for this evening. Where are we in the list? I think we've got Dominicus up next. He knows what he's got to do. He's one step ahead of me. Cool. All right. Yeah. All yours.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. So, hi, I'm Dominicus, and I want to tell you a little bit of how I spent this past October. Okay, let's see. Okay, here we go. So a little bit about myself. I work as a software developer. I'm doing a lot of data viz stuff, front-end stuff. And in the evenings when I'm bored, I try to entertain myself with doing some creative coding or generative art, if you can call it art. And one thing that I stumbled upon this past October was something called Inktober. So maybe some of you know that. It's been around for a couple of years. And the basic idea is if you're an artist who works with ink, you can spend your October reacting to each of those prompts that they're providing every year. So you have stuff like fish and rodent and ominous and so on. And you can get inspired by that to draw something new every single day and post it with the right hashtags on Instagram. And I figured, okay, I'm not really that good at ink drawing, but maybe I can just do something digital instead. So I tried that on the very first day. And for the prompt fish, I came up with this little thing. And I figured, hey, that's not too bad. I can do that for a month. So famous last words, I guess. And I actually, spoiler, ended up doing that. So I created 31 pieces for this. And I came up with a couple of constraints for myself while doing that. So one of them was I would just use P5.js to do the coding and create those things. Since I didn't have a lot of time, I basically did this after work every single day. The results would naturally become a bit abstract. Plus, I wanted to stick to a monochrome scheme since people who are doing the actual Inktober also didn't really have access to any colors. So everything would be black and white and a little bit of gray sometimes. And I quickly realized that the results would mostly be static because to produce videos actually takes some time. And speaking a little bit about my process, usually what I would do is I would read the prompt for the next day, the day before, and then let my subconscious do its magic, however that works. So I would expect some results, some concept to pop into my head the next day. So I could sit down after work to start coding. And yeah, sometimes that worked. And then I would just produce whatever I had in mind before. But sometimes I also got sidetracked just by playing around with algorithms. And sometimes that actually led to the better results, I think. So here's an example of more of a conceptual thing. The prompt was Blade. So I thought, let's just generate different cuts and post them next to each other. It's kind of nice. But for this one, for ominous, for example, I had something completely different in mind, but then ended up creating this here in collaboration with the algorithm. Yeah, a couple of things that I learned from doing that. So first, it's cool if you can actually use your medium and play around with that. So I posted the results on Instagram, and Instagram has this feature that if you post multiple pictures, it creates this little gallery here that you can swipe through. So if you create one wide image and you cut it just right, you can use that to your own effect, as you've seen here. So I did this for the body prompt, for example, just cutting it into 3 images and posting them, which I always found nice and ended up doing a couple of times. When it comes to the actual coding part, I ended up kind of growing a toolbox. So I've been experimenting with various techniques, for example, more traditional ones like flow fields here, and applied them to certain prompts. And then once I had this code produced for these flow field experiments, for example, I could reuse that for different prompts. Like I reused this for rodents just by plotting a black circle in the middle of it to create these sometimes a little bit disturbing rodent close-ups, or create something more abstract like this storm picture here. And same thing, once I started experimenting with 3D shapes, so I wrote a little generator that would create those irregular rocks here and stack them on top of each other. And then the next day I reused that to create a little terrain. And the day after, I'm not sure if used is still the right word, maybe misused the algorithm to generate those rockets here. Okay, another thing that I realized after, unfortunately far too late, is that it's cool if you just take screenshots constantly because they don't cost you anything and you get a nice overview of your process while trying things in an algorithm, taking a screenshot, trying something else and going back and forth. And then you end up with like a folder of nice images, even for a single day. And as I've said, creating videos is cool, but it takes a lot of work. And those were sometimes the longest days that I had with this whole thing. Also, you don't get this, this nice feeling from creating something new in collaboration with the algorithm and just playing around with parameters, because usually those videos are relatively conceptually driven, I would say. Okay, and then one thing I also ended up, if my subconscious wouldn't come up with anything for a given prompt, then I would just create small multiples. So let the algorithm go wild and spit out the things in a broad canvas. But the most important thing, I guess, is just having fun if you want to do something like this and go a little bit crazy sometimes. All right, you can find all of the results on my Instagram. It's just @Dominicus. And yeah, thank you.
I'm trying to cue the clapping track, but it's not working. So fail there. I don't know what's going on. Cool, nice one, Dominicus. Yeah, really cool. Yeah, I'm gonna not ask you any questions right now. We're gonna save them for the end. Yeah, great stuff. We're gonna keep moving. We're sort of on schedule, which is good, I think. Where are we? How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we're going to do one more talk, and then we'll probably have just like a 5-minute break, and then we'll get back into it. So yeah, next up we've got Joe. Oh, wow, you guys are so organised. Or is that you, Anthony?
It's all me.
I'll let you. I thought it just working magically.
No,
just great. Right, Joe's moved from San Francisco to some like courtyard or something. Not quite as glamorous, but cool. All yours, Joe.
All right. Okay. Can you see my screen? I guess first off.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So yes, my name is Joe, and I've been doing a few experiments with the idea of chess sonification. So kind of a bit the opposite to that Dillinger escape plan work. This is taking the data and turning the data into music. And I'm trying to get my, okay, there we go. So yeah, it's sort of a combination of coding, music, and chess. I think my chess something I kind of got into a bit during lockdown, playing correspondence games with friends, and then I started to see some parallels between musical notation and chess notation. So the notes of a scale go from A to G, and the way that chess moves are notated is that they go from A to G, well, to H, in fact, and 1 to 8. We see across a keyboard that those A to G bits repeat each other, so you have different octaves. So across a piano keyboard, you've got about 8 octaves. I started to see this parallel here, and I thought, okay, this is quite interesting. That's I can map a note. Just quick check that people could hear that, because it's going to be important that you can hear that later. Cool. So we could take like the note here, which would be E5, and map that to a keyboard note. And similarly, we've got the note here, which is like a G in the 3rd octave, bit lower. It's looking good, except the problem being is that we're kind of missing these notes H. Like H doesn't exist on the keyboard, it's just A to G. Luckily, the Germans have an answer for that. They call the note B H, and B flat is B. I mean, it's not like now, this is more of a historical thing. It was a sort of a nod to J.S. Bach, and lots of composers would incorporate this B flat A C B motif in their music as a little head nod towards Bach, just to sort of say good work. So that gives us the H, and so that you can extend the scale. Not only that, it's actually a kind of it's a bebop jazz scale that we end up with, and it sounds like this. So we get that nice little kind of semitone run at the end then, but that gives us all of our A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. So we've now got a nice direct map between each note and the tone. The other thing is, like, music is not just pitch, it needs rhythm. So then I looked at mapping the different piece values to different lengths of notes. Quite simple, like a pawn, sort of the cheapest piece on the board, shortest note through to the king. It's like that's the goal of the game, obviously capture the king. The longest beat, and then just sort of breaking stuff up. Bishops and knights are sort of pretty much the same, so we give them a similar note. So a quarter note, coming back to that idea of sort of 4/4 times, so there'd be 4 of these notes in a bar. You'd have 8 of these notes in a bar, 16 of these in a bar. So these are faster notes, slower notes. But then sort of like how to put this all together, because I'm not much of a piano player. So I landed on using Sonic Pi, developed by Sam Aaron, originally funded and sort of co-funded by the Pi organization. It ships on Raspberry Pis and uses a teaching tool to sort of introduce kids to coding, allowing them to make music. The great thing about that is that it's the way it does its notes, it's Ruby based, is very similar to, it's a sort of a similar kind of style to the way that the chess moves are notated. So what our scale would look like is across here, and so that's basically a quarter note played up the scale using a piano. I mean, it really makes coding music really super straightforward. So then I thought, okay, let's start putting some chess moves in. This is the Ruy Lopez move. The way this position would have evolved is that first the pawn would move to E4, pawn moves to E5. So these are white moves, black moves, white, black, white, alternating. We map them out down here, and then mapping in the durations of the notes here. So this is our pawns at a 16th note, followed by the knights, the quarter note, and the bishop again at a quarter note. And we get a little motif. not necessarily really music, but there's a hint of something. So I thought, okay, this could work. Let's take a whole game, break that up into moves. So the Immortal game. This is I found out about it on Wikipedia. It's sort of quite a famous game, and it had the advantage of it not being too long or too complicated for me to transcribe. And what I've sort of done is take the original chess notation and break out each move. So it's a pawn moving to e4, a pawn moves to e5, pawn moves to f4. And that goes all the way through. You've got the queen here, you've got a king, you've got a knight. And as a straight sort of play of that, it sounds. So not really that musical, like a lot of notes, because we're going right from the a G in the 8th octave here. We've got like a G in the 1st octave. So we've got notes jumping around across 8 octaves, and that's not kind of like most music. You probably find it sort of it's much more limited than that. It's a sort of a range over just over a couple of octaves. So I started to sort of dig into the code and just do a little bit of sort of nudging and tweaking on it just to kind of constrain and reduce some of those notes. I won't talk through all of this, but quite simply, if rather than having notes moving all over the octaves, I constrained them to just a couple of octaves. And if there were 2 notes that were sort of the same note consecutively, then I kind of introduced a little bit of randomness just so they could go up or down by an octave, just to try and introduce a little bit of a change and variation. Then in Sonic Pi, put together a chord backing for that. Sonic Pi comes with some nice sort of built-in sort of helper methods there to create chords, or a minor 7th chord or a minor chord there. So I could use those based off the root notes of these moves to sort of put together some piano chords, put together a bass line. That sort of try to come up with a sort of a walking bass line on a minor 7th there, so it would just sort of kind of start to sort of shape it into something approaching a bit more of a tune, and then just a very simple kind of rhythmical pulse on cymbals to kind of hold the whole thing together. And what that ended up with was the Immortal Game Jazz Club remix. So let's have a listen. And there we go. That was it.
Great stuff. Yeah, that was really, really cool. Yeah, I'm not a huge chess fan, but that made me want to sort of play some chess and yeah, listen to some of that music at the same time. Cool, great stuff. Yeah, we're going to take a quick break, just 5 minutes max. Any questions? Post them in the channel, not the Slack channel, the chat channel. And yeah, see you back here in 5.
In 5 minutes. Yeah, just stay in the call there.
Yo, Anthony. Oh, you're back, are you?
It hasn't even been 5 minutes yet.
You're not? I'm just my battery's died on my stupid watch. I need to charge it up. Has it not been 5 minutes? Okay. It's been like 4. Hey, Z. You made it.
Left.
Hey, mate. Good to see ya. Who else we got here? Let's have a look.
Johnny is here as well. Johnny.
Hi, Johnny. What's Johnny got in the background there? Johnny's like painted as a picture.
It's when his internet doesn't work.
Whatever, forever. Okay, like it. Who else we got? Who else is brave enough to put their camera on? Hold on. Not many people. Fair enough. Oh. I think that's been 5 minutes now, eh, Anthony? Well, actually, our next speaker, Brian, he doesn't look like he's even there.
No, we still have 60 seconds left. I set a timer.
Oh, well done. I'm glad someone's on the case. Yeah, Brian's. Yeah, we got a few minutes for Brian. Is Brian up next? I think he's next. Here he comes. This one's going to be interesting, I think. Oh no, we got Christian next. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, sorry, I almost skipped Christian. Yeah, we got Christian next. You here, Christian?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay.
You just share my screen or?
Yeah, have we got the go ahead, Anthony? I can't even see you on here. Anthony?
Hey, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, do you want to give Christian the power to do whatever he needs to do?
You should have the power now within him.
All right. Sharing. Can you see it?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, all yours.
All right. So basically, what I'm talking about is an installation that I did outside my house for Halloween, which it was a very simple one, but at the same time interactive, because I wanted the public to kind of interact within the installation and within the kind of theme of Halloween. I didn't want to be like something like static, even though it's pumpkin by itself is kind of scary and spooky, but I wanted to kind of make something a bit more, scary for them. So the brainstorming was like Googling what can be done. So Googling around, like I was like, oh yes, the smoking pumpkin is great, which I did in the past with glycerin, but it wasn't a very great idea because if you mix it up wrongly, you can catch on fire. So I thought it's time to go a bit clever, a bit more smoky, which I could have gone with a kind of smoke machine type of style, but I wanted to be less expensive, more DIY. And then something like a theme where some ghosty theme on the background. So I kind of picked this kind of picture on the left. So I kind of copy in a way. So yeah, so the planning was kind of this. So it's kind of like a sketch hand. So in front of my house, I got a driveway, which I don't use. I should get a car, but anyway. So the idea was to place 4 ghosts and then 2 pumpkins in the front, and then a PR sensor to kind of trigger the installation. The ghosts were like hooked up with LEDs, and the pumpkins with as well LEDs and some DIY smoke. So my purchase was a ghost, like 4 of them, pretty cheap. Like I didn't want to spend too much, like because it's going to stay in the rain for like a week. Like I didn't put it out only for Halloween, like but a week before, so I can actually see if it works or not. So I wanted to buy something that was, cheap, but also like
I wouldn't too worry if it was like in the rain too much. A projector that just to kind of add up like to the spooky mood. A fog machine. I don't know, like I don't know how you do. I would actually it's called, but it's basically a piezo that vibrates, and then from water it creates a smoke. You've probably seen it like in some of like kind of fountains style, and then a pumpkin. Of course, some LEDs, and then an Arduino to control the whole thing together. And yes, and a sensor. Like I went through like a ultrasound sensor first, but I had some like issues, so then I switched to a PR sensor. So the testing was in my back garden. So probably my neighbor would kind of like say like, what the fuck is doing this guy? So I just set up the 3 ghosts on a piece of wood, and what I did, I just ran some LEDs around like the outline and kind of wire them together into the Arduino. I then code everything together where the sort of animation where it will come up when someone sees, when the sensor sees someone walking by, it will kind of light up the ghost, kind of like giving like a spooky, like scary effect, and then go dark after like the animation is over. And also like the pumpkin, they will like having like an idle kind of state where it will just kind of glow slowly when nobody's kind of actually triggering, and then smoking like giving like a puff of smoke now and then, so we kind of give like this atmosphere, like a spooky atmosphere. And then once one kind of get triggered the installation, we kind of like fully lights up, fully smoke, and kind of like blast everything out. And of course, like I added like sound, which I forgot to mention before, which was kind of like a spooky one. If nobody was actually walking by for over like 2 minutes, he would kind of like, I think it was like a laugh, like an evil laugh. So if you were just walking out to the streets and you would just hear kind of like ha 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 laughed, you would be like, what's going on? And then if you were triggering installations, the installation will actually play a sound, and then also saying Happy Halloween in a kind of like scary way. Here's kind of like my mess of wiring that I have to put together. I use some of this quick connector to connect them because I took inside the electronics every night just because I wasn't sure I wanted to leave it outside all night, and it was really waterproof. I mean, sort of yes, but I just wanted to be safe and just rebuy some stuff. So every night I was going to hook it up all together and then hook it up and put it inside the house. And the result basically was this. It looks very messy in a way during daylight, but in night light you don't actually see too much the wiring and everything that goes around. And so you can see like I placed the 4 gauze. I put some stands bags down there to kind of don't just keep it like not flying away. And now you have 2 pumpkins with the smoke system. And then in the middle, like I put a controller, kind of hide it under like some web stuff. And then at night was look like in like something like this. Again, the picture doesn't give like much, the look and feel, because the camera never kind of give like that great images. But yeah, it was kind of like, it was in this picture you see like a lot of kind of like it's bright, but it's because the exposure of my phone, it's bring it up, and so you can see more stuff. But actually in the night it was kind of like pretty dark and spooky. And the video of me triggering was this. You can hear also the sound a bit. So about like 20 seconds animation. So maybe you can see a little bit of smoke coming out from the pumpkin as well. And then that's it. Like it was like a 20 seconds animations. I didn't want to take it too long just because if people pass by, they want to see it and not like staying there forever. But yeah, but I have also like a video of like people passing by and seeing, like some people were stopping by. You can see like some kids. It was kind of like rewarding to see like people stopping by. I wanted also to create like a system to deliver the candies, but eventually just put like some wires outside to just leave some candies because of COVID. So I needed to keep it like friendly. People also stopping by with the cars, so it was kind of like cool. It was kind of like a good experience to and also like a good thing to share to people, even with this time like where COVID kind of make everyone a bit sad, and having something like interactive and something flashy will be like cool. So this one goes on and on and on. But yeah, basically that's it. The sound, like what I use some like free ones. So there was like the laugh. It was kind of like the laugh was kind of like randomly start. And then it was the kind of the noise when you trigger it the first time, kind of like spooky. And then there was like the happy Halloween. So it was kind of like, and then it was kind of spooky. I'm also working on a Christmas installation as well, which is coming up soon, like hopefully the 1st of December. The idea is to create a snake and ladder game, which I basically made a full size one where people can stop and play with that. There's going to be also a Christmas tree that is going to be coded in like dynamic LEDs, like probably 10 animations, and then a candy dispenser, which when you finish the game, it will basically dispense the candy. Here is missing the hole, but it will dispense down the hole. And I don't know if you're interested, but basically this thing is going to be also like reachable from the web. So it's going to be on Twitch, where you can play the game remotely as well. Like there's going to be a camera streaming this system, and then you can roll the dice and then play. Of course, you cannot get the candy on that side, but also you can trigger the 3 animations. So again, this one is a thing that I want to share with people, because on this time as well, it's a bit tricky to kind of enjoy this kind of like days. So I wanted to kind of share a bit happiness to around the world with like streaming the stuff, and also people, if they're here, they can come and play in real life, but otherwise they can just watch it online. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of quick, but that's it. I don't know if you guys have any questions. I don't know if I can see the questions here.
We'll save the questions for the end. But if anyone has any questions, in the chat and note them down.
Cool. Thanks, thanks, Christian. Yeah, that was really cool. I wish more people would make the effort at Halloween. We don't get
I mean, there is a street here that's they do like competition for Christmas, so I hope I might win. I mean show off a bit, but yeah.
Cool, nice one. Yeah, as Anthony said, I think I interrupted him with the clapping.
I see people asking where they can try. I'll share the link of the Facebook page where I'm going to basically, put updates. So if you guys want to kind of follow the page, and then eventually we'll put up the link there. But yeah, I'll update the stuff like not daily, but when I got something ready, I'll put it up, new updates there.
Oh, nice one, righty. Well, yeah. If anyone's got any questions, we can post them in the chat, and we can ask them at the end, or we can chat in Mozilla Hubs afterwards. Cool. Right, Brian, you're up next. Sorry, Brian. I think he's drinking a cup of cocoa there or something. He's unmuted himself. Is your Wi-Fi working all right?
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear Brian's got a pretty good setup going on here. Anthony, you're gonna pin him, or is he pinned already?
He's already pinned.
I thought it's just me. For some reason, I get a pretty good view. So maybe everyone else does. Right, all yours, Brian.
Okay, I'm just going to start my timer because otherwise I'll end up waffling on and exceed my time. Sorry for the microphone and a rather unconventional cam, which I'm going to move around as well. I don't have any slides, unfortunately. So yeah, so I just like making electronic projects really, and Arduino, which I noticed a couple of your other users, members here, will be programmable chip basically, and you program it in C. It's
I think your sound is. We can hear some background noise, but I think your mic's gone out there, Brian.
Oh, hold on. Can I hear myself?
Yeah, you're okay now.
Yep.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'll keep the mic a bit closer. Yeah, so I got into making stuff with Arduino really, which is programmable chips, and I was quite interested in art as well. So I made. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. Hopefully, it won't crash. How do I select the web page? Do I just click on that? Yeah. So that's the Arduino link if any of the members are interested in that. So I started off with this idea to make a piece of art, and I'll show you on the camera in a minute. That's basically what it looks like, and it was designed to be flat and go on the wall. And the idea is you interact with it with your hands. You don't have to actually touch the pad. It works off a distance. The original idea was that as people move their hands over it, everybody kind of moves their hands differently, and it lights up as you move your hands over it as well. So the idea was that it would recognize gestures and respond with a particular color pattern, and then if the same person interacted with the device again with the same gesture, then it would respond with the same color pattern again, and then hopefully you'd kind of get this communication happening where the device has recognized the user and the user has recognized the device. That never actually happened. How do I stop this screen sharing? I go back to oh cool, how do I go back? Right, okay, somehow I've done it. Yeah, so this is the device. I'll just show it on camera there. The only thing is I'm going to bring my microphone down a minute so that I can interact with it.
You need a third hand. There we go.
And then the data, I couldn't share the screen on the same format on the same device, but there's basically, well, that's bar chart mode. It's got some other modes. I can line and chart. I'll just flick through them and just show you. I'll have to put the microphone down again. So there's the line, and the reason for logging the data, hopefully I can get it in focus, The reason for logging the data originally was so that I could try and interpret it to recognize gestures, which I never actually managed to do. But what happened is, looking at this data, I noticed there was patterns, particularly between day and night. Because of the way that the pads work, they receive it. Well, they work off capacitance, basically. They're capacitive touch sensors on the device. And I became intrigued about what that data might sound like. So I made another device, which I called MIDIACA, which is that there, also made with Arduino. And that receives the data from the touch device and changes it into MIDI. And there's a few controls on there. You can change the frequency shift, basically moves the note up and down octave. There's my alarm. I'll speed up a bit then, and you can change the volume. There's also what I call a quench, which is the time that the note stays on and off for. And then a trigger, which is the level from the chart, if you like, at which a note is activated. So I'll just I'll put the microphone down now, and I'll interact with the device, and hopefully you should be able to hear some music, or well, music objectively, some sounds. Yeah, you can actually program it so that each pad, back up there. You can program it so that each pad is a specific note, or you could just have it playing where the level of touch is the actual, determines what note will be played. And I've just got that playing through a really old rack mount MIDI synthesizer. So the device is not actually making the sound itself, it's sending out MIDI signals to a synthesizer. So that's about it, really. Let me just send, I don't know if I sent the link. Yeah, I sent the link on the website there for Arduino and the device. So if anyone wants to have a look at that's what it's all about.
Brian, yeah, really interesting. I bet your neighbours love you with all these crazy sounds coming out. I think between everyone here, we can start a new band or something, start a new genre of music or something. Yeah, cool. Really, really interesting. Great. Well, we're just going to crack on. As always, if you've got any questions, chuck them in the chat. But next up, we've got Tarek. I think. Anthony, you on the case here?
Yep.
Your Wi-Fi still? Oh, he's up in space, up in the clouds. Where's Tarek?
Hello, hiya.
He's up there. Cool.
Can everyone see and hear me?
You can, yeah. Yeah, all yours, Tarek. Take it away.
All right, fantastic. I'm just going to share a screen, and hopefully that'll work. Right. Can everyone see the screen I'm sharing?
Yep.
Cool. All right. Yeah, everyone can see that. Great. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about my experiences in teaching either very young kids to code, or even kind of adults who are perhaps new to technology and a bit tech shy. And what I talk about might be of interest to you if you have friends, or perhaps you're kind of doing the teaching yourself. Some of you might already know me. I run the other smaller, less professional Meetup group, the Algorithmic Art one. We've been a bit quiet since the pandemic. So for a few years now, I've been
teaching kids to code. And I've learned some lessons and I thought I'd share them. Here's just some pictures of the kind of setup, and you can see it's relatively informal and friendly. And that's kind of an important element of it as well, to make the environment sort of fun and not like a classroom. Here's some more pictures of people, and you can see parents are involved, and that's really important as well, because the learning happens when the parents help the kids, or the kids quite often help the parents as well. So I'll start off with the only slide I have with text on, just to kind of hit you up front with the lessons that I've learned. So I think the most important thing I've learned is, and this applies to other areas of technology as well, a lot of the content out there, unfortunately, isn't designed to be, with the kind of audience in mind. Here we're talking about young people or people who are tech shy. That means you have to think quite hard about what kind of language you're using, the duration of your language. Kids don't have, they're not going to read paragraphs, and they're not going to spend 45 minutes concentrating hard. The visual approach is really important, particularly, either for kids and including grown-ups who are perhaps a little bit afraid of technology and have never coded before. So the visual approach really works. And what that means is, if you're seeing or using materials which are pages and pages of code or writing, that probably isn't going to work. I'll talk a little bit more about programming languages as well, because I think that's something that isn't great today, but some are kind of more accessible than others. I think the other thing that I've really learned, and that many of you here will have experienced as well, is avoid as much tech as you can, because if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. When you've got 45 minutes, an hour, or whatever it is, teaching time, if you're spending a proportion of that trying to get software installed, things not clashing, libraries, all this gumph, it's going to go wrong and create an unpleasant experience, and people won't come back. So for that reason, I always recommend people use web-based tools, nothing more than a web page. If you can code in the web page, see your results in a web page, use any device, smartphone, tablet, whatever. The simpler, the better, and the less to be installed and configured, or even zero, the better. And I can't kind of stress that enough. I remember a nightmare session where we once used a university's facilities, and we spent sort of 35 out of the hour minutes getting all the logins and Windows set up correct, and that wasn't useful. Make it friendly, and what I mean by that is, unfortunately, I've seen some sessions where the mentor or the teacher is really trying to kind of achieve certain targets or reach a certain kind of level with the kids, and that doesn't work. You've got to make it fun. You've got to make it about play. Play works. And making it feel like something that isn't a test. And honestly, and I shouldn't have to say this, but it isn't about you. It isn't about you showing off how much you know. It's really about putting your feet in the shoes of your audience and kind of understanding what it is that they're learning, and keep your ears open in terms of what works and what doesn't work. What I'll do for the rest of the slides is show pictures really, and just give some examples of materials and resources that I use. So when I said web-based, there are various options now. Before P5 processing made their kind of P5 editor online, open processing jumped ahead, and it's brilliant. It's many people use it for teaching, and it couldn't be simpler. You log in, you've got a place where you kind of type code, you click run, and you see your results. And if you save it, it's a URL which you can share with your friends. Simple as that, and it doesn't need to be anything more complicated than that. Nothing to install. I think when I first started doing this about 5 or 6 years ago, I remember nightmare sessions where we had to get text editor set up and the JavaScript libraries installed in the right place, and you can avoid that today. There's absolutely no need to do any of that. I've also created a course, you might call it, which is a kind of a series of mini bite-sized projects which start from zero, from scratch, and it's used by adults as well as children. And when I mean children, I mean average age 9, so I'm talking 7 to 12, 14. And this thing I'm quite proud of because it has been iterated over those years. The lessons have been learned, the words or the paragraphs that don't work or the things that don't work have been fixed. So I'm hoping it's useful to other people as well. There's links you can go to. It's all free online. And it takes people through concepts that are genuine programming concepts, like, you know, shapes, locations, randomness, repetition, iteration and recursion, to all the advanced stuff as well. And people seem to like it. Here's some pictures. And what you can see here on the left is there's about 5 words a page, and that's right. You know, you don't want to have lots. You want lots of pictures. This is from a different page, which is a more advanced project, introducing recursion and fractals. But that's you know, when people who are shy of tech or young people look at this, they're not going to run away. If this is a block of text with equations, and you know, it's not going to work. Again, lots of pictures, and what you find is that the kids do end up understanding what recursion is, what iteration is, because the concepts aren't hard. I think the thing I've learned that surprised me is all of these concepts are not actually hard. Is the teaching of them has been done really badly, generally speaking. There are obviously notable exceptions, and it's great to see sort of, you know, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds creating their own recursive patterns, and that's fantastic. And you can even introduce kind of more advanced color theory, but again, a few words a page, you know, gentle language, lots of pictures, but nothing that's going to take more than sort of 10, 15 minutes. I also found that languages actually, as much as I'm a fan of coding, are terrible. You know, I've been programming Python since 1998. I recently, you know, came to JavaScript, and you know, I've been doing this stuff for 20-something years, and I still think coding languages are terrible. And I'll give you an example. So processing has a laudable aim of reaching many people and, you know, introducing them to coding. You know, great foundation, great work. But because it's been developed primarily by technologists, they haven't always thought about it from the perspective of end users. So here's an example, top left. For many years, the language required you to use the word ellipse rather than circle, because from a technologist perspective, it's a superset. Why would you have circle? But when you're talking to people who are new to technology, or 7, 8 years old, the word ellipse is scary. It's mathematical, it's technical. I think in a recent update, after a bit of pushing by several of us, they introduced circle, but square isn't in there. So when you want to teach people to code visually, the word square needs to be in there, not rectangle. The next really good example with languages is repetition. That's a C or Java style loop. That's terrible. I mean, even as an experienced coder, I still have to think twice about what's the variable starting at? What is the variable at the end of the loop? What is it inside? I shouldn't have to do that. This is cognitive load. Languages should not, you know, make me think more than I need to. So I wrote a little library that plugs into P5.js, and it's already available on Open Processing. It's just a little toggle that you turn it on, and it makes a lot of things easy. I mean, it has default setups like a gray background, a thick line. Introduces things like square, circle. You know, it just takes the load off, and it's based directly on what I learned were obstacles for kids. So here's my version of repeat. It doesn't nullify the for, because that's useful, the for loop. But when you're starting at the beginning, repeat is much easier. And just to make some of us chuckle, this is logo from 1967, repeat for, and the instructions for repeating. That's as simple as it should be, not all of this C Java style. So just to illustrate this difference between good and bad language design and the importance of it. I've also turned a lot of those tutorials into videos, and you can go and have a look. So there's several playlists. There's the course, there's the videos that match that course, and then there's just other things for people to practice if you're interested. How can I make this next screen go? Oh, there it is. It jumped forward a little bit. And I think the other thing that's really important when you're teaching people who are a bit shy about technology is to reinforce kind of positively, you know, kind of doing show and tells at the end of each session. People love it, the adults don't, but the kids love it. And they're proud of what they've done, and they want to see and be inspired what other kids are doing. And that's always the best bit of the kind of teaching sessions. I think towards the end of last year, we did a kind of a 3-month season of algorithmic art. And yes, we had adults showing some of their work, but we also had this top right image, which is a 12-year-old who'd never coded before. And after about, after one summer of learning to code, we showed his work at a major, gallery, and that's the kind of thing I think we should be doing more of. And I think the most satisfying thing really is helping kids find a talent or a passion they perhaps didn't know they had. I've come across children who were perhaps struggling in school or weren't sure what they wanted to be, and then after some time experimenting and playing with coding, particularly visually, they suddenly are certain that they want to enjoy graphics or visual design or go into gaming. And because it's accessible, you can the fun of it is there without the barriers. I'll stop there because I've probably gone over my 5 minutes, but the links are all in the slides if anyone's interested.
Oh yeah, nice one, Tarek. Yeah, that's really interesting, and yeah, good shout to try and make some of this stuff a bit more simpler for kids. And I think yeah, myself, just naming things in general. If you choose the right name, it can make such a difference. If you have the wrong naming conventions, it can have such a knock-on effect down the line. So yeah, to start with, the basics of language, yeah, it's a good shout. I never really looked into that before. And there's some, a few people agreeing in the comments there. So yeah, if you can share any links in the chat, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yep, fantastic, cool. Brilliant. Well, thanks for organising this. It's been fun.
Yeah, nice one. Thanks. Cool. Right, who we got next? Let me get this over here. We are. Catherine's next. Catherine is our last official speaker of this evening, and then followed by her, we've got a visual experience by Sally, Matt, and Tim. I'm not sure if they're all here, but I know Matt is. So I'm going to hand you over to Catherine now. There she is up there.
Right. All right, let me quickly share my screen. Let's see. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
All right. So hi. So I'm an interaction data designer at Signos at the moment. And so therefore, I would like to just show you some prototypes that I did for the project called FC Bioinputs. And for this one, we are actually trying to explore how to use computer vision data to explore new ways to perceive sports, particularly football matches. So we received some data from Skills Corner, and they are using their algorithms to identify and track players. And you can see how they're identifying the names. They know the algorithm can detect which team they're playing for. It identifies the goalkeeper, referees, and you can receive like the X, Y coordinates of the players and the X, Y, Z coordinates of the ball. What you also clearly see, however, based on also that little visualization on the bottom left corner, whatever is outside of the screen or outside of the camera will not be detected by the computer vision algorithm. So therefore, it's not really a whole view of the match, but only a partial view that the computer vision algorithm generates. Nonetheless, we wanted to still explore what we can do with the data, which kind of looked like this. So we received a massive JSON file from Skills Corner, and it actually crashed my code editing application. So I had used text editor to open it and to just see what kind of values to work with, like track IDs, X, Y coordinates. You have got trackable object IDs, and it was lots of values that had to be read through. And one of the first processing sketches utilized the X, Y coordinates of the players and the ball. So this is like a second by second rendering. Like you could use the arrow keys and skip 1 second by second through the game. And you can see like with dots that the frame rate is actually 10 frames per second. So for each second, the computer vision would take 10 frames. So therefore 10 locations for each player and the ball, which is quite interesting to see. And one other value that we could use is the intensity value of players. So intensity value is defined by Skills Corner as how fast the player runs. And this is some prototype that we also did in processing. So you can see that the white dot is the ball and all these players are the purple lines. And the faster the player runs, the more pinkish and brighter the hue gets of the dots. And quite interestingly as well, the ball sometimes also gets out of the pitch, where you can see, okay, someone kicked the ball out of the field, and also like, and then those moments where you have no footage whatsoever because the camera pans to the goalkeeper or pans to the crowd. So therefore, there's no analysis of what's going on the pitch and where the players are. So therefore, you can also see like very nice renderings of where the ball goes, how the players run fast across the pitch to follow it. One of the issues, however, that we find is we can still identify the players, which we were not, unfortunately, able to do for the project due to some regulations because of privacy. Therefore, we just lowered down the resolution and created a heat map that you can see on the left here. So rather than having individual players displayed, we just kind of have areas of high intensity in the pitch itself. One other thing that we wanted to try out was how could we collapse the pitch. So rather than just showing some sort of heat map, we aggregated the cells along the vertical columns. And therefore, here you can see a bar which just indicates where the activity is, if it's like very close to the center or very close to either side of the pitch, so it's close to goal. And what we could do with that by having that kind of one-dimensional bar is to stack it up and let's see if it's, let's see, hold on. Sorry, I think, oh, let me close that first. Yeah, you can stack up the individual bars, which represent basically like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, or 15 seconds of gameplay, and therefore can read along the y-axis where the activity happened. Like if it was like in the middle of the pitch and along the match, it just moved to one side of the pitch, moved back to the other side. So the players were just running across the pitch and following the ball. And you've got moments where there's no data at all because the camera is probably like panning towards the crowd, for instance. What's also interesting is if you have like 15 seconds as a time interval, and you get so much noise because football is a very fast-paced sport, and therefore within 15 seconds, players just run across the pitch multiple times. So you can't really read that anymore. So we decided to use 10 seconds as a nice, let's say, medium ground to have still enough granularity to follow the action of a football match. Another thing which we wanted to understand is what is match intensity, because raw intensity values are just velocities, as in how fast a player runs. But after some explorations, the player runs the fastest when they're in the middle of the pitch, as in when they're running across the pitch following the ball. So we decided to take 2 more parameters, which is the distance between players and the ball and the distance between ball and the goal. We wanted to just analyze, okay, when are the moments when the players are very close to the goal and might be able to score a goal. And if you stack it up, you can kind of see how the activity goes along the pitch here in the middle of visualization, and therefore having high intense moments close to goal. What we want to explore as well is, okay, what if we sort out the intensity values and have a much more clearer view of when moments of intensity happen in a football match. The reason why we actually sorted it was also because our original idea was to use heart rate data as a comparison value. So we used Fitbits on fans to watch the football match and therefore matched up the match intensity values that we derived from skill corner data, from computer vision, and then also Fitbit data to just kind of create some sort of fan energy moments and to see if the peaks in match intensity and heart rate kind of overlap or match. And also this is halftime. And you can see like you've got lots of high heart rates because fans either just walk up the stairs or go somewhere else. That's why the heart rate is kind of very high during halftime, which was quite interesting to explore. And yeah, this is actually the end output that we came up with. So this nothing that I did not create this. It was our great software development team who did the 3D render in WebGL. So what I did was just using the prototypes in processing, trying to explore the data and doing the data metrics. And yeah, this is the final outcome, and it's gonna launch this weekend officially. And yeah, so that's Project FCB Pulse, what we're working at, and that's it so far from me. I hope it was interesting for you guys, just to get some sort of prototyping journeys, what I do as an interaction and prototyper. So yeah.
Yeah, nice one. That's really interesting. It's great to see how far Signal Noise are going with this. I'm not sure how many people have seen the previous stuff they've done with the data viz stuff on the Bayern football stuff with the sound data, fan sound data from the stadium. So it's great to see them coming up with new ideas and yeah, pushing the boundary. Yeah, great stuff. Thank you, Katrin. You've got you're up there now. Cool. So that's all our speakers done for now. We're going to go through some questions. Answer lots of questions. Before we jump to questions, though, Matt is going to share a link in the chat. We've got a virtual experience for the Metro Arts Gallery. So if people want to start making their way over there whilst we're going through the questions, and then after you guys have explored the art gallery, we'll try and head over to Mozilla Hubs to chat a bit more. So yeah, right, Anthony, you're in charge of questions.
Yeah, okay. So I've tried to note all these down. So the first question, which was for the first demo, how are you handling accessibility challenges?
I haven't really sort of tackled that yet. Kind of the main thing I think is the kind of hover status with the sort of markers kind of floats around. So again, we can sort of obviously do that different things with that, but I haven't really sort of tackled that yet. It's kind of an experiment at that.
Okay, and there's another one. If you're using React, did you think about using React free fiber? And if you did, and choose not to, why?
I kind of started using 3JS probably quite a few years ago. So I've kind of used it with jQuery and I got used to using it raw. I looked at sort of React Fiber maybe a couple of years ago, and it was like, yeah, and then I did 3JS project back then, but I kind of stuck with like native or like raw 3JS. It kind of sits quite separate from the React code, which is kind of good and bad. So I probably will look at it again for another project, but for this one I kind of went raw. I think I'm sure it's sort of progressing as well. So it kind of probably makes React a lot better than it did. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all the questions I found in the chat. I got some more questions for Julia. I just spotlight. So here's one from Zdeniak. Does picking up certain emojis influence which posts I see next?
No, so the emojis don't influence which posts you see next. They influence only the map that you receive at the end, but the questions do influence which posts you see next. So yeah, so how you answered each question section affects that.
And a question from Dave. Julia, is this text from the book?
No, the text is not from the book. The characters, so I crafted the characters based off of various scenes in the book, but their sort of storylines, personalities, and all the dialogue is all separate and unique to the game.
Cool. I think, Tarek, you answered this question, but it might be good to answer anyway here. For this one's for Tarek. Amy says, have you done any teaching online since lockdown? Any tips for that?
Yeah, I kind of typed a lot in response, but broadly, I think it's more difficult actually teaching kids online. I myself haven't done much because I think I had a certain level of quality that I wanted to achieve. However, other people really have, and my own daughter does lots of online courses every day, sort of technical and non-technical, And I think it's really about sort of making sure that there's the right size. So, not having too many people if you want it to be interactive, trying to achieve less in the sessions because you're going to be messing around a little bit more, and actually trying to kind of make sure that you catch people who are very quiet or a bit shy, because otherwise they'll sit there and watch it as if it was a YouTube video really, and get turned off, and you won't be able to see that. So it is a disadvantage teaching online, sadly, but others have really made it work. I should perhaps try again myself, but if others on this chat have thoughts, please do share them.
We've got more questions popping up, but I'm just going to go through this list quickly and then we'll go back to these other questions. So this one's for Dominicus, and it's from Amy. She says, I'm curious how producing work on this structured schedule affected you. Like at the end of the month, do you feel like your work, skill, creativity progressed over the 31 days? And did the regularity play a part? So
okay. Yeah, so I guess, as I mentioned, you kind of start developing this toolbox that you keep working on and you improve, and you learn new things as well if you push yourself hard enough. Of course, the regularity also meant that for some days it actually felt kind of like a job. So you knew you had to produce something, but you were completely uninspired. I'm not actually sure if it increased my creativity, because it's really hard to measure, I guess. But it was definitely an interesting experience.
Cool. And a question I found for Katrin, Brian said, can you predict the goal?
We wish we could, but sometimes we can't. That's how football is, isn't it? You just can't predict what happens. We wish that we could analyze it. It'd be amazing to see patterns in match data and just to, okay, if a player is very close or it's kind of constellation on the pitch, to just have a chance, a chance of goal, it would be a nice thing to actually explore. But we haven't reached that ambition yet. But it would be actually a nice idea.
Oh, and there's another question that just popped in from Zdeniak. How do you find the collaboration with the dev team if you do prototypes and processing and then they start building it in WebGL or what you have? Any sharing of code? So I guess he's asking about sharing code between processing and WebGL.
I think processing is just not compatible. Like WebGL is quite its own thing, and therefore it just share more like visuals. And for instance, for the data analysis, what I shared is just the logic behind. So okay, we have those values, and it corresponds to the height. With those values, it's corresponds to the range of hex values, or just to share the logic behind the code, so not the code itself. So I do share snippets because I think developers still can't read processing code. It's just kind of different language. But most importantly, I just comment every time on the code itself. Okay, that's what should happen, etc. Just get a logic for them to understand it, I guess. But already close collaboration between devs and design prototypers.
Brian has a question. He says he has a question for the sound of chess, but he hasn't wrote it here, so maybe he wants to speak out loud about it.
Yeah, sorry, I forget the guy's name that was doing the sound for. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, we hear you and your music.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, I'll just turn that down. Right. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I was curious if he put sound to any of the famous games and whether any particular games, like some of the classic wins, famous games, or whether there's any relationship with the music there that's produced from the game, and whether perhaps it would be possible to tell who's playing by the sound of the game that they're playing, because I guess some famous players they play particular formats sometimes, and that might be able to be recognizable in the music data.
Yeah, I haven't taken it that far yet. I did do one other game, which was the Bobby Fischer Spassky world title, world champion match in Iceland. That was like, again, my knowledge of chess is not like that great. I mean, I think it's too early to say whether like a good game of chess makes a better piece of music. I don't think, I'm not sure. And also because it's like it's all over in like 30 seconds, and then these chess games last for hours. So I'm actually trying to explore a whole different way of sonifying chess games, where it's more trying to create a sonic landscape that is like just a more slowly evolving, like what the shape of the board is, so that not quite real time, but a piece of music, where like a 2-hour chess game lasts more than like 30 seconds, because I think it's very hard to hear any patterns in that.
Great, thanks. It was very interesting.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, good question, Brian. You got any more questions, Anthony?
Yeah, there's one for Julia from Albert. He says, how do you see the game working in relation to the book? Is it designed to be experienced after reading the book, before reading the book, or while reading the book?
It's designed to be a standalone thing that is inspired by the book. So you can play it without ever having read the book, or you could read it in conjunction somehow. But the idea is that it would just be inspired, but it's an entity on its own.
He says thanks.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, has anyone got any more questions? If you've got a question, you could probably speak out, just unmute yourself. Or, well, actually, you won't be able to unmute yourself, will you? So,
I'm not sure I can. Yeah. Well, I think most of the speakers, if not all of them, will be joining us in Mozilla Hubs afterwards, so we can ask more questions there. Quickly going to hand over to Matt McDonald. He's going to just quickly just tell us a little bit about a digital arts festival that he's going to be running next year, hopefully. Anthony, you're in charge of setting him up there. Hopefully he's in there somewhere. And then we're going to hand over to the virtual experience. We're getting there. Right, all yours, Matt.
Cool, thanks, Dan. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So I'm a startup founder and a beginner creative coder. I'm not quite at the level of Dominicus or anyone else here yet, but making progress. But basically, I'm setting up a digital art festival early in the new year, most likely around about March or so, and most likely in Peckham, just because that's where I'm based. And the focus of the festival basically is creative coding, generative art, and other kind of digital art forms. So animation, motion, and hopefully some interactive works. And the idea basically is to get those works into a real life space, which is kind of what we've all been missing for the last year or so. So basically, let's have a big gallery, screens on the wall, projectors, do the full exhibition, and have a program of events, workshops, live evening events, some awards, and hopefully some music, that kind of thing. Possibly some jazz chess-based music as well, fingers crossed. But we'll see. Haven't had that conversation just yet. So the idea is to have some kind of established creative coder-based works, but have an open call for more emerging artists, people who basically haven't had their work in a gallery space. Maybe they kind of make work and stick it on Instagram, whatever. It's just a chance for them to get their work in a real life space, basically, and kind of celebrate it. So if anyone's interested in getting involved, that'd be fantastic. There's loads of ways you can do that. You can either show your work, you can host or kind of be part of a talk or a workshop or a panel or any kind of evening events. Or if you're interested in promoting, or if you know someone else who might be interested, then that's fantastic. The best way to get involved is to go on peckhamdigital.org, peckhamdigital.org. That's the website. There's contact details on there. You can get in contact with me. We've had a load of interest already, which is fantastic. A number of people have kind of signed themselves up for talks and stuff, which is amazing. Two quick other things. Around March or so next year, it's likely that COVID, etc., is still going to be in place. So the aim of the festival basically is to go full social distancing, exactly in line with other museums and galleries, how they've done it. So it'll be things like 2-meter distancing, a single path round, face mask, gel, that kind of stuff. But the idea is basically to have a large enough space that there's enough airflow there's enough volume that we can have all the kind of events that we'd hope for. Numbers will be capped for events and stuff, but basically it's not going to be the case of everyone standing in the corner, you know, hoping they don't get coughed on. It'll be a little bit more engaging than that. And my idea is to have an event using the constraints that we have, but actually get out into the real world again. Seeing as 2020 has been a bit of a write-off. Yeah, so if you're interested, then get in contact, peckhamdigital.org. And finally, a big thank you to Dan and Tarek, who've also been really helpful on this so far. So thanks to them. Yeah. Back to you, Dan.
Nice one, Matt. Alrighty. Okay, so Matt Spendlove has posted in the channel a link to the virtual experience, assemblynow.net. When you go over there, make sure you're going to have to allow access to your camera and your microphone. So you might want to sort of, well, we're going to all mute now, so there's going to be no sound coming out of Zoom. Once you've spent some time in that virtual experience, there's going to be another link that Anthony's going to post any second now to the Mozilla hubs where we can where we can go and chat amongst ourselves and ask any more questions and yeah, see how that works. So create yourself a little avatar and yeah, that's pretty much it. So I think that's it for now. I'm gonna shut up, mute myself, and yeah, this is probably the last meetup we're gonna do before Christmas. So we'll, if I don't see you in the hubs, we'll see you next year or hopefully sooner in a pub somewhere, but you know, let's see. Cool. All right, well, thanks all for coming. Great turnout, and yeah, take care. Cheers.
See you in the hubs.